to talk a little bit tonight about Daredevil Born Again. So, it is written by Frank Miller and drawn by David Mazzucchelli, and it is a seminal Marvel book. It ran from Daredevil issue 227 to issue 233, and it is a exploration of how to really bring a person to their knees and how that person can either choose to give up or they can choose to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and reclaim what is truly theirs, what they have worked for their entire life. So, I just wanted to introduce myself in case you haven't seen this channel before. My name is Doc Lail. I got that nickname because I am working in the psych field. I am not a doctor, but I work as a mental health technician, and I've been working as that on and off for the past 18 years. And about 10 years ago, I went over and joined the car business. And when I got over there, that was the nickname they gave me was Doc because I had worked in psych, so it just kind of stuck. So if any doctors, actual doctors, pop in tonight and I offend you with that, none meant. Anyway, so I've got a Marvel Premiere hardcover of Daredevil Born Again that I bought probably 10 years ago. Really enjoy it. The presentation, let's go around and look around here. The presentation is the same as the Torment book and Demon in a Bottle and some of the other books like Craven's Last Hunt. And I've got one called Death of the Stacys as well. So let's see here. I'm going to open it up. It's got this really nice presentation of red pages. It opens up to Daredevil Born Again. Let's see if I can bring this a little bit closer to me so that the light doesn't absolutely ruin it. Writer is Frank Miller. Artist is David Mazzucchelli. Colorist are Christy Scheel and Richmond Lewis. Lettered by Joe Rosen. Edited by Ralph Macchio, not the Karate Kid. And cover artist, David Mazzucchelli. So it starts here in Daredevil 227 with Karen Page. And Karen Page is the ex-lover of Matt Murdock, Daredevil. And Karen is offering up some information to somebody for a hit because she's got hooked on heroin and she needs a fix. So she doesn't care whether or not she ruins somebody's life with this information, but it spreads quickly and it eventually gets to the kingpin. But what I want you to look at is the artwork here for a minute, the colors, how it all seamlessly works together. It shows the kingpin, and in this panel, the gentleman saying, "Hey, my cousin got this information. He wouldn't bother you with it, but I really think that this is something that you wanted to see, and you've been asking for it." And so he gives it to him, and he says, "Don't do anything, but I'm going to test this information and see what happens." Let's see. There's a couple of things that stick out during this whole series and this whole run. And one of those things is he always starts off in a bed. And right here, he's nice and comfortable. He's got his cover and his mattress pad, and he's sleeping alone, but he got restful, comfortable sleep. And as you go through the individual issues, then every time on, say, the second page, then you see him in a different position. He's always in bed, but you see him in a different position. So, and as it goes along, it just keeps getting worse and worse for Matt. Now he's gone from sleeping in his bed to now he's sleeping in a random alleyway with some Joe Schmo that he doesn't even know. But just like life. Life throws you curveballs, and you don't really know what to expect. So Matt has to choose, am I going to lay down and get shanked by Santa Claus? Or am I going to let Wilson Fisk win? Am I going to let the Kingpin win? Am I going to give up being Daredevil? Here he's saved and found by Sister Maggie, who may or may not be his mother. Matt Murdock's grown a beard here. He just kind of, he quit taking care of himself. He quit shaving. He quit doing anything like that. Guys, I apologize about the camera being a little wonky tonight. I tried to set up a tripod, but I couldn't determine where I wanted to do this shoot. I couldn't figure out whether I wanted to do it in the bedroom, which is where I do most of my videos, or whether I wanted to try to do it in the living room. So it's a big conspiracy. The whole story is just a giant conspiracy designed to ruin one man's life, to bring him to his lowest of lows. How are things going to impact him as the world changes around him? And so as he's laying in bed, sweating and trying to get to feeling better after living on the streets and losing everything, his life, his home, everything that made Matt Murdock. He can no longer be a lawyer. He's been disbarred. His apartment exploded. He's lost all of his friends. They've kind of gone by the wayside, except for Foggy Nelson, and he doesn't know where he's at. But it also destroys the life of a cop, because in this red panel right here, it is showing the death of Nick Manolis. Nick was a perfect straight cop for 20 plus years. And the Kingpin bought him off because his son needed an operation and Nick couldn't afford it. So the Kingpin bought him off and told him, you tell them that Murdock is dirty. You let the cops know that Murdock is dirty. And I will pay for whatever your son needs. And so in those red panels, that nurse killed Nick Manolis. And the whole time, Ben Urich, who has been a big character in the Marvel books ever since the 70s or so, Ben was kind of like Matt's friend who works at the Daily Bugle. And they had gotten to Ben, and they had already injured his hands. And they told him, leave this story alone. If you don't leave this story alone, then you won't be able to live. We're going to kill you. But first, we're going to take your life apart one piece at a time, just like we did to Murdock. So Ben is trying to determine, how strong of a man am I? Is it worth it to lose everything that I have worked for and built over these years? And he's not a rich guy by any means. Matt Murdock was on top of the world practically. He wasn't Bruce Wayne wealthy, but he was wealthy enough to get by. He was wealthy enough to have made a self-made man of himself. When his father started out as battling Jack Murdock, a boxer who ended up refusing to take a dive. And so when he refused to fall down for anybody, refused to lay down for anybody, and then they killed him. The bookies and the people that had set up all of these boxing matches, they killed him. So Matt is slowly getting his life back together, getting himself back together first. And here is Ben Urich's wife. And so Ben returns home with a cop. And he walks inside, and here's the nurse, the same nurse that killed Manalus. And the nurse goes about destroying Urich and destroying the cop that came with him. And Urich goes into the bathroom and finds his wife is hanging from the shower. Meanwhile, the nurse is still taking out the cop. And here comes Matt Murdock. Ben's trying to reach for something to cut his wife down. Matt, meanwhile, dispatches the nurse. Ben gets his wife free from that. She lands hard on the floor. And he goes back out, and the cop is down, but the nurse is taken out as well. So at the very beginning of the story, this Dick Tracy lookalike was actually the character that talked about getting Karen Page, Daredevil's girlfriend, the heroine. So he's been looking for the entire story. And he's going after cops now. He pretty much feels like, this is my woman and she owes me money and I'm going to take it no matter what happens. Kingpin still has plays, that are working. And one of those plays is to hire somebody that looks like Daredevil to go around and just wreak havoc. And here comes Matt, looking much less like a superhero again, but going up against this crazed Daredevil wannabe. It's Nuke in a Daredevil costume. Nuke is one of the super soldiers that was in the same program years later as Steve Rogers, but it drove him crazy. And it just played with his psyche, and he was never the same kind of man since. And in one of the best panels of the whole thing, Karen Page finally finds Matt. She just wanted Matt because she knew that he would protect her and that he would forgive her for what she had done, that she had destroyed his life. But in the end, he loved her, and he would protect her at all cost. Ben is still trying to figure out what the story is. Now we've got 232, God and Country. And now Nuke is here in all of his glory. Red, white, and blue. Resetting the numbers, the kill numbers on his gun. And just total destruction. Blowing up everything. Meanwhile, back at a ramshackle apartment, Matt is trying to help Karen to get off of the heroin detox so that she can clean up. And again, he's holding her. He's just sitting there with her. Just letting her know that she's okay. Or that at least she's going to be okay. The artwork in this is by Mazzucchelli, and he did Batman Year One. And his artwork is very sketchy at times, but then when you've got a closer up of a character like Nuke right here, it's got, sufficient detail. But it's more about the storytelling than it is about getting everything perfectly right. Matt finally decides that he's going to shave his beard, look more like himself. He leaves Karen sleeping in the apartment. And here's Urich, and he's going to go talk to the nurse about what happened. And all of a sudden, he realizes one of the guys that came in there with him has been sent to silence the nurse. The cop gets shot, the other cop gets shot. Urich is the only one left to try to stop this guy because the photographer is just taking shots. So he eventually gets the gun away from the guy and just bashes him in the head with it. But it's too late because everybody that was in the room, besides those two, are gone. Kingpin tries to manipulate Nuke and say that, there are those who say that unity is conspiracy, that America is evil. And he tries to remind him, he moves against me and calls me a villain, but I'm not a villain. So he's twisting him against Daredevil. And he said, "Where is he?" And he said, "He lives in Hill's kitchen." Matt's trying to give back, helping at the soup kitchen after Maggie saved his life. Nuke has been unleashed again. He finds Karen because it blows up the skylight of the apartment. And she says, "Am I dying?" And he says, "No, everything important to you, everything important in you is safe." She said, "I kept your suit for you. I kept it safe for you." So finally, after 5 issues of just being drawn down into the depths of depravity, after losing everything, the Kingpin systematically took his life apart. Daredevil comes back to the fight. Not Matt Murdock, but Daredevil. So we have Armageddon. Here we have Daredevil, Captain America, and Nuke. And as you can see, Nuke is just as big as Cap. So the helicopter pilot is telling him, no, mission aborted, mission aborted. And Nuke is like, "Nope, I'm not going to let our boys down. I'm going to take Daredevil out. He's an enemy of the country." It's almost like a Rambo character. He said he tried to hit him in the nerve cluster, and his body was just too strong. Nuke's body was too strong, and Daredevil was unable to shut him down. And one of the most interesting things, the helicopter pilot decides to come after Daredevil when he thinks that Nuke is getting hurt, and starts shooting at Daredevil. And Daredevil, a blind man, uses his hearing abilities to find with the machine gun the helicopter and blow it sky high. And now we've got Iron Man. Cap shows up. Wilson Fisk is talking to some of his underlings. One of the guys says, "You've been crazy ever since you lost your wife." "Oh, wait a minute, I've been drinking. I'm sauced. Don't think about it." He says, "I understand." and grabs him by the throat and then breaks his neck. Captain America tracks Daredevil down because he can hear Cap's heartbeat. So he goes and talks to a general, Cap does, trying to figure out who Nuke was. He says, I wish I could tell you, but, the department holds you in the highest regard. And he says, I'm not loyal to the department. I'm not loyal to anything except for the dream, except for what, I, as Captain America, I'm supposed to embody. So that's where he finds out about Nuke being the only survivor out of a test of 20 men. Agent Simpson, codenamed Nuke. That's who Nuke is. So Nuke is being held by the government, and he says, I just want a red. Give me a red, because he's got red pills and blue pills and white pills. And they told him, no, you can't have any red pills anymore. And the reds were the ones that gave him his super strength. They said white and blues only from now on. So Cap goes up against him. And drops him through a building. And Cap gets up, and Nuke's like, no, leave me behind. I'm not worth it. Here comes another machine gunner. And Daredevil manages to knock them both out of the way and save them. Although the machine gunner got Nuke on the second go around. He tries to drive him to the hospital. And he says, where are we going? And he says, you're going home, Sergeant. He says, you promised you'd never do that. So he rushes to the hospital and drops Nuke right there on the table and tells them that they have to try to save him, that he wasn't a bad guy, he was just misunderstood. And at the end of it, Karen Page has come back into Daredevil's life. Like she never left. Let me see if I can go through a few more big parts of this. So he says the banks insist that I haven't paid them. They threaten to foreclose. I lose my temper and yell at them, and they hang up on me. He says I pull out my checkbook and run my fingers across the stubs. They're written in with a ballpoint pen, leaves deep, easy to read grooves in the paper. I wrote them on time, just like all my bills, but there's no sign of them in my monthly statements. The banks never cash them. So that was early where, he was getting threatened to foreclose on because he hadn't been paying his accounts. But he knows that he has been. So here was Manalus at the beginning, and Daredevil goes and he says, why would you do that? Why start lying now? You haven't lied in 20 years. You're the only cop that's not on the take. And Manalus says, get out of my home. He says, it's okay, but I need to know why you're trying to ruin Matt Murdock. And so he takes a swing at him and tries to hit him with a bottle. He throws Manalus against the table. And he says, I told you to get out of my home. And he went. And he left just as quickly as he came because he knew that Nick was going to call somebody. And he said, yeah, he showed up. Doctor said that he needs that treatment soon. So Daredevil was outside the entire time listening, trying to figure out exactly what was going on. And then we move a little bit further into the story. And Matt is going home to his apartment. And he says, I must be tired and nervous No, it's the pavement. That rumble in his apartment went up in flames. So now he didn't have a home. And that was when he first was staying in the ratty hotel. He still had a bed to sleep in, still had a few of his clothes on his back, but that was really all that he had. Let's see. This shows where he's starting to kind of crack up. It's Foggy. It's Matt. No, please don't hang up. I need your help. I think I'm sick. Something's wrong with my mind. I just beat up a cop. It's the kingpin. Everything. I keep thinking everybody's working for him. Yeah, that's practically everybody is working for him. I know. At the end, he says, "Okay, I'll give it my best shot." And he walks away, and it says, "At the tone, the time will be 10:32." And if you never heard it, there used to be a number that you could call, and it would be the local bank, and it would give out the time and the temperature for you, just in case you were wondering. And so we cut back to Karen Page. Matt goes straight after the kingpin and ends up getting knocked out. And they drop him into the bottom of the river in a cab. And says his death must be neither mysterious nor suspicious. There must be no room for questions, no cause for investigation. Unconscious but living, Murdoch is placed in a stolen checker cab and is driven off the pier into the East River. So then you've got Daredevil against Santa Claus, of course. And here's Matt reliving his origin story. He saw an old man that was trying to cross the street, and he shoved him out of the way. And as he did, he got hit in the face with some corrosive chemicals. And that's why Matt is blind now. He's just trying to sleep. He said he finally found the kingpin, found out my secret identity, and took everything away. And I attacked him, and he killed me. And of course, he doesn't mean that literally. He means that he destroyed who he was. He destroyed everything that Matt knew to be true. So Matt even gets hit by a car because he's blind and he's drunk and he's tired. And that was a guy still trying to find Karen Page at the beginning. That nurse was bad news. And she grabbed Ben Urich, said, "My employer has asked me to make it plain to you that every time you speak the name Matthew Murdoch, you'll lose the use of your fingers." So she puts Manalus, that same nurse, puts Manalus in the hospital. The same nurse that eventually kills him. And that's one of the more powerful images as well, as Matt finds his way to where the nuns live, and Nurse Maggie, or Nun Maggie, takes him in. Sister Maggie. She takes him in. And that's when Urich has to decide, what am I going to do and how far am I going to chase this story? So, and in the back, let's see what else is in the back of the book after we get through with the story itself. All right, we've got the original trade paperback cover from 1987. 7th printing from 2005. And here's the original covers that were modified to remove the trade dress, and they were recolored by David Mazzucchelli, presented here. So that's 227, 228, 229, 230, 231, 232, and the cover to 233. Some of the original pencils. I always enjoy getting to see the pencils versus the finished product. You get to see the craftsmanship of the artist. You get to see exactly what he or she was thinking as they were going through the process of building this world out of literally nothing. Nothing but the words that they get from the writer. But you can see the storytelling is strong even in these rough pages. You can see how strong David Mazzucchelli's idea of storytelling is. Some darker paneled pages. That's Matt confronting the Kingpin. Karen Page. Matt's defeat. Nurse breaking his fingers. That's different from the finished page, where Nurse Maggie finds him. Her sister Maggie, I mean. You've even got some of the script pages by Frank Miller. This is really neat because you get to see how script pages are broken down. And some end artwork. And then that goes to the back cover. And you've got that big image of Karen and Matt holding each other, which is really what the story boils down to at the end of the day. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It doesn't look like anybody joined me, but hopefully it will come around and everybody will see it on the repeat. And go ahead and give me a comment. Pop a comment down in the comment section below. Let me know that you've seen it. Let me know whether you enjoyed this or not. I've actually don't have it with me, but I'll swing by and pick it up at my second location where I've got some of my books the next time that I go by. And I've got the same type of hardcover for The Man Without Fear by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. So I'll also cover that book at some point in the near future. But again, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing this video pop up, and we will talk to you guys later on.